Let's do it.
Sounds great.
This is the Trade Show's Unhinged podcast, a podcast from the Facebook group You Know You Work in Trade Shows When. This podcast centers on trade shows, live events, and experiential marketing activations in today's world. Your hosts are Todd and Mike, who is the owner of Showbox Exhibits and the creator of the Facebook group You Know You Work in Trade Shows When, and Mike Morrison, Vice President of Sales for WS Display. The clock is ticking, so let's get busy and get to it, and we'll do just that after this.
Need a presenter? Your Event Audio has you covered. Closed-circuit audio equipment with turnkey operation at your trade show booth, live event, or private event. YourEventAudio.com is the place to go. DJ services, MC talent, and a whole lot more. Check out YourEventAudio.com today.
I should probably teach myself not to play that song when I'm driving down the road, because that's like the race car music that gets you kind of going when you're driving, and called rock music, and you'd never listen to that while you're speeding. And there's a story with that I'll tell you in just a second. As we do I believe it's our 5th episode now of Trade Shows.
Happy 5th anniversary.
That's right, 5th for like 2.5 months now. I guess we've been rolling. So that's great. I'm Mike Morrison, VP of Sales for WS Display. As you see on the screen, Todd and Mike joins me now if you're watching, as opposed to listening to the podcast. We appreciate both. Todd is the owner of Showbox Exhibits, based out of Houston, Texas. And I'll start with this. Every day is just an interesting day in my world as I get older. And this morning, I had to make a long story short. I had to go in for what's known as an echo check. It's a heart check, and what they do is they inject stuff in your veins and makes your heart speed up.
Echocardiogram? Is that what it was?
But there's a name for it,
Yeah.
and I think it's the juice that they shove in your little vein.
Yikes.
It's not dopamine, but it's dope
Okay.
something. It's probably pure dope off the street. I don't know. It was in a syringe, and it went in, and man, my face started tingling, and things started going wacky. But I did not have a heart attack, which is good. That was what they were looking for. The kicker was I kind of left a little early. I was kind of antsy about things with the heart, so I wanted to get there in reasonable time. I got to an intersection that's a couple blocks away from the doctor's office where this was going at. And you've been to these intersections before. We've all seen them. I'm 5 cars back from the intersection. Red light is up there. Green arrow is pointing to the right, meaning after you stop, you can turn. 5 cars, all 5 cars must have been facing the phone. They were not paying attention. Not one person hit the horn. And I was just too far back to feel like I would have any efficiency of doing it, right? So I look to the right, there's a little parking lot right there. So I'm like, okay, the heck with it. I'm going to shoot through and bypass all 5 of these drivers and go on my way. Well, I'm in Rome, Georgia, by the way. It's a couple of towns up from me out of Dallas, Georgia, where I live. And this Rome police officer, bam, sitting right there in the lane. He saw me do everything that I did, right? I'm guilty of sin. So he pulls up real slowly. I can tell he's looking at me. I'm like, fine. I get in it's a 4-lane road. He's in the inside lane. I get on the outside lane. I pass him. Woo! He blows me up. So I pull over the convenience stores the next block. And I just kind of put my hands up on the steering wheel. I'm like, whatever, because then you start thinking all of those apathetic statements like, where's the cop when you need one, right? When somebody flies by and knocks you off the road and everything. So I'm going through that syndrome as I'm sitting there. And he's a good old boy. I mean, he just walks up, one of those good old Southern policemen doing his job. And he's like, good morning, sir. How you doing? I said, I'm doing great, sir. How about yourself? We're having that exchange. He goes, you don't mind if I can see your license and your insurance? I said, sure. I'm going to reach back in my pocket, not pull my gun, but I am going to pull, and of course he laughed. So I pulled my license out and give it to him. I said, my insurance is on digital. It's on my phone. I'll look it up. And he goes, well, hang on. Just tell me something. Do you know why I pulled you over? And I said, yes, sir, I do. And if you'll allow me to speak freely and honestly, I will explain. He said, please do. And so I open up and
This is when you hang yourself.
Well, I thought I was going to hang myself. I said, look, I was back at that intersection. I'm the 5th car deep. You have a green arrow and nobody's moving because their damn faces are in their phones and they're not paying attention. And look, I've got a heart appointment right up the road here at Harbin Clinic, and I'd like to get to it at some point. And I'll be honest with you, sir, if it happened again, I would do the exact same thing I just did. That's where I thought I hung myself.
Uh-oh.
That's where because I was ticked.
Sure.
Well, fortunately, the man had a sense of humor and he laughed. He turned his head and he laughed. I could tell he did not want to laugh in front of me. And he turns back, he walks over to the window, he hands me my license and he says, just be a little careful out there and have a good day. And I said, I hope you have a great rest of your week as well. And
wow.
I drove off and he drove off. So I turned a $200 or $300 incident into mutual, and we laughed about maybe we'll see each other at the store or something. I'm like, yeah, whatever. You just need to go. Just leave. So he drove and I drove. And I bring it up because the first thing I think of is, what does this guy do at trade shows? Well, many of us who listen and watch the show have been in those situations, whether it's setup, whether it's takedown, whether it's crates, whether it's services, you have a problem, right? And we've all faced those apathetic people in authority at these shows. And you kind of go, oh man, that's some crap. Why can't you just do what you need to do to help me out here type thing? And a lot of times I wonder if it is, Todd, our attitudes when we ask for the assistance. Like in this case, I kind of joked around about it, but then I was kind of serious about it at the same time. I made my point, I'm like, if these other people would have turned, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. I could have gone to my appointment. We've been done. But because they're breaking the law, which, by the way, in Georgia, it is against the law for you to hold your phone in your hand while you're driving.
Okay.
It must be on a carrier or, on your dash somewhere, on your windshield, however you mount it.
Right. Hands-free. Hands-free.
Thank you. The 2 words that make it a whole lot better than all that explanation I just did and wasted time. So back to trade shows. Have you been in? Because I know I have. I've been in many times, and I've been on both sides of the spectrum. I've had knockdown dragouts, and I've had really sweet conversations with a lot of help. But overall, I find that, and for me, the best thing to do is to have the best attitude walking into the conversation for the request than it is the other way around. What's your take on that?
Well, that's funny you bring this up because we've trained a few new employees recently, and the one thing that we try to get across is be nice. Without their help, you're dead in the water, and then the client really at the end of the day is going to pay the price for labor going over, rigging going over, whatever. But yeah, just be nice and honest. If there's a mistake that we've made as a company in planning for that booth space, that the electric is wrong or it's misplaced or the booth is oriented wrong. You just have to go up there and be honest and be nice, because if you're belligerent and rude, you're in the back of the line and you will not get helped. So just like you did, you were honest with the guy, you were friendly. No need to be combative, because all that'll do is just prolong this problem. So that's exactly what we teach. When we have new employees, is just go up to the desk and just say, hey, this is the situation. How can you help us out?
It is so easy to say, and it is so hard to do sometimes, unless it's in your nature. I've met many people in this industry that they are the nicest people in the world, even in those negative times and those times and the stressful times that they're able to carry that. Some people are like me, they just don't do well. I try to bring the humor side into it just to kind of balance it. Even though saying I would do it again, it's like I shot him once, and if I have to get it again, right. I shoot him again, right? It's not good, Mr. Morrison, not good. So anyway, I find it interesting as we're getting ready, and which kind of segues into our second topic to talk about, and that is September. We all know between month of January and the month of September, those are the two that you got to go out and get it while you can get it, right? I mean, I would mention some shows off mic earlier. Printing United comes to mind. It's one that I'm going to be in. Matter of fact, I'll leave Tuesday for 10 nights in Las Vegas, which we both agreed is way too much time in Las Vegas, especially for an East Coast guy. But there's IMTS, there's Gas Tech, G2E, there's Public Works Expo, EMS, CAMX, Premier Beauty. Those are ones that have at least 5,000 or more attendees in there with exhibitors. And then those medium-sized shows that are in there as well really kind of throw monkey wrenches, but you got to get those done as well. And you got to diversify and get people to different shows for your setups and everything. And the thing, it's still kind of interesting is, I know from a production standpoint, a supply standpoint from production side, and you can speak more intelligently about supplying your end users during these times. There's a different set of problems, but there are problems still in those busy months. Is there anything you can suggest as a tip for people getting ready to go into the second half year, the busy season, month of September, that can get them over over the hump as far as not being able to stand in the box and not strike out per se?
I mean, if I want to talk to my clients, I want to say pre-plan. Don't give us 2 weeks to print graphics. Don't give us 7 days to print graphics. I do have a handful of accounts that give us, 6 months to get ready, but man, one of these Gas Tech, for example, it's just been a last minute decision for everybody, it seems like. So it just makes everything so much easier if you plan ahead, give us plenty of time to do things, make decisions early. If you've got a committee of 10 people, get them together, because all that does is gets your exhibit house behind the 8 ball, and then things get more expensive. And so number one would be to just plan ahead.
That's, it's interesting, and it's both sides, right? But it trickles all the way downhill to the end user. That's where it starts. And then it kind of climbs back uphill to you, and then to a supplier like me, and then execution at the show that we wind up having to go to advanced warehouse. If we're lucky, sometimes we have to go to the show floor. And that makes it even worse, because now you're leaving doors open for so many bad things to happen. What if UPS and FedEx don't show? Right. What if it gets lost? What if it gets deported to somewhere else across the country? It's nowhere near. And that's happened to me on many occasions, where I'm at the show, the dock, going, well, I got a crate, but it's for a show in Dallas, and my this crate for Vegas is over in Dallas, and they got at the dock. It leaves too many openings for bad things to happen. And I guess if you ever talk to your end users, they'll probably have a bunch of excuses as well. Well, the CEO walked in and he changed everything the last second. Yeah. Or a colored, we're running through a little bit of that right now. Colors faded on a backlit display that was supposed to be finished up today to go to Vegas. Now probably delayed one more day because of that. And that day means more money across the board trying to ship it somewhere. Yes, you are right. Keep in mind, and a lot of times it's also, I've heard this one before, we didn't know we were going to the show until the last minute. I really, really wish that would be taken off the board. If you're not ready to go 2, 3, 4 weeks before the show with a decision, you probably should not go. You should 86 that idea and do it next go round. What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're not ready, you're just going to make it worse for yourself. You could possibly just fail,
Sure. Take a pop-up, something you can take on the plane or check and let, get there quickly and cut your losses and just do what you can do. But if you're not ready to make a big pow and wow effect on somebody at that show, it's probably best to stay away from it. Maybe walk the show without an exhibit. I've done that before, and network in the show. And sometimes you come away with business you didn't even plan on coming away with just by walking it, or having meetings at dinner or what have you. And these private events that are happening, that's also taking another stab at third-party traditional trade shows and association shows, taking away business from them because of the expenses that are involved with that. But that's another subject for another day. When we start talking about money, this last topic, this is why we call the show Trade Shows Unhinged, by the way, because this is where Mike just totally becomes unhinged. When he sees a headline on a story like this, the U.S. economy grew faster last quarter. That's all it says. The U.S. economy grew faster last quarter. Now let's dig into the nuts and bolts of the story. And here's where I find it interesting. Gross domestic product increased at a 3% annualized rate. Congratulations. Up from the initial 2.8% assessment. Okay. If you do the math, that's 0.2.
0.2
growth over what you estimated. I call that a dead nuts on pretty good estimate, if you ask me.
Yeah.
But you want to throw in a headline that says U.S. economy grew over last quarter.
And how does that 401k look? It doubled, right?
Whoa, yeah, right. Yeah. Let me get my fan over here.
Look at you fanning yourself with undies.
With those, yeah, you got to do what you got to do, right? You know, to get a story across.
The AC's broke. I got to fan myself with Benjamin.
Yeah, because I can't use that to go pay for the AC guy. I mean, Lord knows that would be dumb. I don't know, man. I just really all these. I know it's election year. I get it, but then the last line of the story does make sense. Economic expansion has slowed down from 2023. I think we can all agree on that. It's not at the same rate. And actually, they said, well, the interest rate and the purchasing power of the lower income levels, that's who's suffering right now. Not the other people, middle class and up. They're doing just great, according to this story. Bullet points that they usually put into this, even as the labor market shows sign of cooling off. Interesting. 48% of working Americans surveyed by this company Bankrate says they plan to look for a new job in the coming year. And those that are looking are saying they're going to ask for higher pay and more flexibility in their work conditions. Doesn't bode well for trade shows and live events, does it?
No, it does not.
Because the bottom line, you got to get there. You got to go. You got to, we run 24/7, 7 days a week. And, I heard it before recently this week in advocacy, where one of the biggest economy driven industries out there that nobody knows anything about, right? Nobody talks about trade shows, live events. They don't know about it.
Right.
But yet, when I say live events, obviously they know about concerts and the Ticketmaster and all of that kind of stuff, but they don't know about business and industry events that drive this country, by the way, and keeps us going. But all I can say, man, is I certainly will be glad. We got about 4 or 5 more of these to do before November, when we have the election week, find out where we're going, and then we can get back to some common sense, because that seems to be missing in some of these news articles.
100%. Yep. I cannot wait until this election cycle's over.
Gosh knows. And it's every time we have one, it seems you think you've seen it all. It gets worse and worse every time. 2028, I don't even know if I'll be alive, but it'll probably be worse than this.
Do you remember when politics were boring? Why can't we go back to that?
And you wouldn't even think about staying up late and watching the results. You just read them the next morning.
Yeah, you're like, oh, okay.
That's our president.
He's president now. All right, let's go on. The flag is still the same color as it was yesterday.
That's right.
Yeah, you're right.
It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. But anyway, crazy times. And I guess what keeps me distracted is my job in this industry and sports. Kind of those things are what keeps me from pulling out my hair.
You need distractions for sure.
I got to have distractions. But when I pull up stuff like this to talk about, it'd be interesting to hear from our listeners what they feel about stories like this one, where it says the economy grew faster last quarter. It drives me crazy. And by the way, after the break, we'll come back and we'll talk about the email address. You can send your comments to, suggestions. We've already gotten some feedback back coming up our next show. A special guest we'll talk about just in a little bit. But we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, while we were at the Chicago, Randy, Don Savela, and myself, we did an interview with a gentleman by the name of Matthew Little. A lot of the EDPAers know Matthew because he's with NuVista out of Texas, but also handles all the chapter work for EDPA, the multitude of chapters, large, medium, and small, across the United States for our industry. It was a very interesting talk, and we're going to talk about that coming up right after this. From light boxes, towers, counters, and back walls to turnkey custom exhibits, WS Display is your partner in providing quality displays at extremely aggressive pricing to fit any reseller's budget. Make more profit by teaming up with WS. With a team of experts to assist with estimates, renderings, and CAD, to fulfillment, setup, and test fitting, quality photo proofs, and complete project handling from our East Coast, West Coast, and Pacific fulfillment facilities. We can be your partner today. Hit me up at mike@wsdisplay.com for more information. Welcome back to the Itasca Country Club.
where we're here for the Chicago Randy 21st edition. New country club, a new course, new location, new weather conditions as it's been raining like cats and dogs, but is now beginning to slack up before we go out there and actually participate in this. So we asked a EDPA board member, Matthew Little, to join us here with the Todd and Mike Show reunion podcast and talk a little bit about a subject that he knows very, very well, and that is chapter development within the EDPA. When I first started in EDPA, Don, it was, you had a handful of chapters. They were the major ones. I helped start the Southeast chapter back in 2004. And then it was just like everybody everywhere started seemingly a chapter. And now they continue to grow, which is amazing to me.
Yeah, I'm waiting for them to announce, maybe a chapter in Mississippi and some of these other underrepresented areas, maybe Wyoming.
because both of those areas are such dynamic
they're trade show meccas.
Exactly. Absolutely. Thank you, Matt. I couldn't figure out the word, the trade show meccas, and where you must have an EDPA chapter. But crazy stuff going on with that, right?
Yeah, and it's amazing how things have changed from back 20 years ago or so. Like, I helped formulate the Southern California chapter, and I think that was the second or third time it was reformulated, because it used to be whenever there was a downturn, be it a real estate bubble or whatever, some companies, they couldn't have their people spending time, supporting the organization. But it looks like that's way in the past. I mean, Matthew, especially Lone Star, the Great Lakes chapter.
Right. So the problem is, though, like when you get in a big region, say Texas, for example, we're spread out so much. So it's really difficult to get representation in Houston, in Austin, in San Antonio, and Dallas. And then we also represent the states around us as well. So you've got Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, New Mexico. We do have a member in New Mexico. We're trying to develop the Oklahoma and other regions around us. But I will say that with the advent of all these platforms with Zoom and things like that it's a lot easier to have meetings and be more inclusive, because people can join in and do things like that. So I will also say that since Dasher has taken over as executive director of EDPA, that the chapters actually work together better than they have in the past. There used to be a real rivalry between them, and it was really antagonistic almost, where one chapter didn't want the other chapters knowing what they were doing or participating or things like that. And now with these platforms, a lot of people from other chapters participate in other chapter things. I mean, I go to multiple chapter events
everywhere,
all over the place. So, and it's because you get connected through those meetings online, and it's a lot easier to participate that way. So,
one of the things that I see that you're and it's getting very noisy in here, as you can tell. But this is just because of the situation with the rain. So bear with us. We'll try to overpower the noise. One of the things I see you do, I don't know if it's weekly or bi-weekly or even monthly. You correct me if I'm wrong. It's a trivia challenge between the Texas chapter and the Midwest.
Well, it's not. So there's it's monthly, and I believe it's the second Wednesday now of the month, and we have a new industry challenger every month. So we challenge one of the other chapters, or we challenge like the Women in Exhibitions or the Future Leaders or one of the groups that's involved within the industry to participate. Everyone is always invited to participate, whether they're in the challenge or not, but we just focus on that. And usually what we try to do is like pick a chapter who is going to have a big event the next month so that they can promote their event on the trivia night to get more participation. So that's how we try to choose that way. And it's a lot of fun. Classic Exhibits sponsors the event and gives us a $50 Amazon gift card to the winner. It's 20 multiple choice questions, and then there's a bonus question in case there's a tie break. But it's a lot of fun. We're a pretty competitive group, and it's a good time.
It's kind of like the golf thing, right? You got a sharp pencil and a big eraser, a bigger eraser, but it's a multiple choice thing. But
It is multiple
Choice, yeah.
That's good to hear, and I'm glad to hear that part about the chapters being more cohesive and not so. I mean, you can be competitive, but at the same time, it's kind of like the Randy and the spirit of the Randy, right?
Oh yeah, we are very competitive as chapters. I mean, if you go to the EDPA annual event, the Access event, the Chapter Challenge, everyone wants to win, and we reformatted it this last year, and now there's a victor belt, like a WWE belt that is being passed around, and I do not get to participate in the Chapter Challenge, even though I'm one of the leaders of the Texas chapter. I'm also on the committee that does the event, so I'm in charge of actually the Chapter Challenge, but I will brag on my team. They did win the inaugural belt, but it's a lot of fun. We started the Chapter Challenge to begin at the beginning of Access. It's not just the competition at the end. There's a whole slew of things that they can do to get points throughout the event and to keep everyone participated and engaged. And then it culminates in sort of like a little mini Olympics at the end where they get their final points.
Hey, Matthew, that brings up anything you can share with our listeners about Chapter Challenge coming up for EDPA Access this year in Southern California?
It's going to be a similar format to last year with the stuff that's going to happen beforehand. It was like a photo scavenger hunt, so that's going to take place. And then the final events are not finalized yet. So we're just in the initial formatting of it, but yeah, it'll be very similar to last year. Everyone had a good time with that. So
it adds a lot to the event, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So my question is, it's 2024. I mean, I don't think you should have to apologize for your team winning. I mean, it is what it is, right? I mean, it's almost borderline political if you think about it. I mean, but what is coming from an EDPA? You're board member, so
Right.
You've got the inside on what's happening. Any major changes that you can? I know Dasher's like 15 feet from me right now, and probably we'll say hush and mum's the word, but
No, I mean there's no major changes coming, but we're really focused on education, future workforce, and sustainability. Those are really three buzz topics within our industry, and there are committees within the national board that have EC members that are focused on each of those. Michael McMahon is in charge of future workforce. Steve Deckel is in charge of education, and Jim Obermeyer and is sustainability. Yeah, I believe he's sustainability, and I know James Zacharias is on the sustainability committee as well. So those are just the main things that we're working on. Of course, advocacy is always a huge thing with us at EDPA, and a lot of the efforts are coming to fruition. I will tell you guys this as far as future workforce goes. So we just did Exhibitions Day. You were there, right? Yeah. So we did Exhibitions Day, and one of the congresswomen that the Texas chapter went to visit, or the Texas delegation, I should say, well, not a chapter. We went to visit. Then after we got back, I actually got an invitation from her office. Her office is handling a job fair at the new ballpark in Arlington. It's going to happen the beginning of August 8th, and we were invited because of the efforts that we were talking about while we were there. So EDPA will have a booth at the job fair for the DFW area for Texas as a state, not a chapter, because of our advocacy efforts.
Do you think it takes like one of those events to just rocket launch into other opportunities? I mean, because what I see is DFW is huge, right? And Arlington's huge. So if you go there and you do that event and somebody in another municipality sees that, we want you to be a part of ours, and how that stuff just grows from that.
I hope so. But the thing about it is again, it goes back to, can you get the coverage to do all that stuff? We just were at the ASCA show for Future Workforce, which is the American School Counselors Association show. We did it the year before. It was in Atlanta. we had decent success. It was our first time there. We learned a lot of stuff. This time, we had 259 conversations with school counselors nationwide. And really, it's, we're not in the position to find actual jobs for people. We're promoting the industry as a whole and letting them know that there are job opportunities available. And we are working on some tools that will assist them in finding a job. And that's going to get rolled out here in August. There's a really cool tool that we've been working really hard on that I've been came up with the idea, and I'm not going to share it here because it's not ready yet, but we'll be able to share that out in August.
So you didn't hear it first here on the Don and Mike Show podcast reunion, but it is coming.
You heard it second because we talked about it a lot at the Ask a Show, and we showed a beta version of the item. So, but it's an online tool that will be a big help for when the chapters are out having their meetings and stuff. And that's one of the things going back to chapters and future workforce. The chapters are finding a liaison within their chapters to be the future workforce person. And then as we schedule or find the schedule for different meetings and stuff, then we turn those over to the chapters when it's in their region, and it's their responsibility to request the resources that we as an organization have come up with for them to use. And we'll email or not email them, we'll FedEx them, either a banner stand or a backdrop or tablecloth or whatever they need for their job fair, and give them the tools that they need to have a successful job fair to educate people about our industry.
Well, the fact that we're having these conversations about furthering our industry out there, which is much needed, it's we're the secret of industries out there. People, you don't go to college in most cases and declare trade show, exhibition, live event work as your major. You come out of so many different areas. I did in communications and so many people at other areas. So the more we preach, the more we talk about, the better off I think we'll be.
Right. So our tagline that we use on all the EDPA booths for these bigger events is, "We're the largest industry no one's ever heard of."
That is so apropos. It is so true.
Yeah.
Matthew, yeah, go on.
I was going to say, it was interesting because we did Skills USA, which is a big thing in your market in Atlanta. And one of the school counselors came up to me and she goes, "Were you at Skills USA?" And I was like, "I wasn't personally, but we had an exhibit there." And she pulled up her phone and showed me a photograph of the booth with the tagline, "Largest industry no one's ever heard of." She liked it so much, she took a picture and then saw us again and brought it to my attention. So
it is so apropos. Don, you've been doing your publication now for the number of years you've been doing it. And how many times do you have conversations with people outside of the industry that don't even know what you're talking about or what you're doing?
Right. It's been there the whole ride, 30 plus years, what do you do? People only know convention centers for auto shows or a boat show for the most part.
Consumer shows.
Yeah. But I think that's changing, especially from the workforce development work that the EDPA and all the volunteers have been pouring thousands of hours into, and it's turning some heads. It's great to see.
Yep.
Well, it's a great conversation with Matthew Little here on the Don and Mike Show podcast reunion. We're going to take a quick break and come back and wrap things up after this.
Showbox Exhibits, headquartered in Houston, Texas, where they specialize in design, fabrication, and management of your trade show displays. At Showbox, the difference starts with listening to fully understand the unique brand story that's needed. Then they create an innovative, compelling concept that reflects specific event objectives. From static trade show displays to fully custom oversized exhibits featuring multimedia graphics, Showbox brings your company's message to the masses. Showbox is a trade show, convention, and environment design agency that is full service from start to finish. They're based in Houston, Texas, but they serve worldwide. They've been creating exhibits for over 20 years. Showbox Exhibits at showboxexhibits.com. So Matthew Little and I in EDPA, we go back a ways, and I mentioned there that I actually helped start the EDPA Southeast chapter a long time ago, 20 years ago, actually. It was in 2004 that we started it, and now it's kicking and rolling and moving along very, very well as the other chapters are. And that's a way for listeners who are in our industry, if you want to get plugged in to our industry. It normally doesn't cost anything to join these local chapters, by the way. Like in your case, there's a Texas chapter of EDPA, and he mentioned that in the interview, that the issue, if there's an issue, is there's Dallas, there's Houston, there's Austin, there's San Antonio, there's El Paso, there's everything's kind of distanced, and then they have to service Oklahoma, there's Louisiana, there's Mississippi. Well, Mississippi wouldn't be there, but New Mexico, those bordering states that are around there. So there's some challenges there on getting involved at the local level at some time and some point, but the chapters are trying to do their job to spread that, that wealth of availability and networking amongst the industry. It's good education, and it's a good way to stay on top of what's going on. I like EDPA. I've been a member of it now for over 24 years. It's good to know those people. It's good to have a network of people you can call, even though your competitors are there. We know that, but your other ancillary possible partnerships, strategic partnerships, things of that nature are there as well, and you can get to know them in the long run. I know I've partnered up personally last year with Brewmark. Carpet. We co-sponsored President's After Gala party at the Access at the end of the year. I'm doing that event again this year in California. I'll be sole sponsoring it, but that's because I wanted to. We wanted to have the whole room, and push an agenda of what we want to push. But it comes with a very pricey ticket. It's kind of like your F1 front seat, row seat type ticket you were talking about last show. 100 grand. Wasn't that? But take off one of the zeros, and we'd be right in that area.
Wow.
But that being said, so we were off mic talking a minute ago. You asked me an interesting question. I think it's a good one to finish with, and that's the second half or the remainder of 2024 as we get ready to enter this fourth quarter in just another month or so. How do you expect to end your year? And of course, as we've been touting, from a supply standpoint, we hired 3 new regional sales managers. So I've got them out in the field, and they're out working, calling on people and getting more touches, more contact, more opportunity to estimate jobs and try to earn that business, more than just the one guy who was, I was either sitting here or at the airport trying to travel the entire country. Can't do it. It's not very effective. It's cheap for the company, but it's not effective either on me or on the goal of what you're trying to do.
Right.
You and I were talking a second ago about you guys, and it sounds like you guys are going to hit home runs here in the last quarter as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Gas Tech is in Houston, so the Houston exhibit houses are gearing up, and we're slammed right now. So Gas Tech is going to really give us a nice launching pad into the fourth quarter, and it looks as if we're going to finish this year strong, just like we did last year. So although we see and hear economy this, economy that, on the consumer side, business to business is very strong still, at least for us.
That find your niche. That's one thing, and we also talked about another trend, and I've said this on previous podcasts and others discussions that I've had. There's a tremendous amount of collaboration going on between companies, whether it's a merger, whether it's a buyout, whether it's a strategic partnership or collaboration. There's some type of meshing going on.
Yeah.
If I'm not good with this, whatever this is, but it can complement my offering that I'm doing, there's this tendency to have a discussion. And if all parties can meet in the middle and say, yeah, I can live with that, then you see the headline coming out about companies teaming up together. Digital right now, technology is at the top of the game. And as you and I were talking, PopShap just announced that they have strategically grouped with Skyline organization and all of those branches, I'm assuming, to offer the digital sides to their product complementary going out in the field. So there's things like that's happening. You're either getting bought out, you're teaming up with somebody, or you're hiring more salespeople and you're making more touches and you're getting out and getting more aggressive than maybe you were in the previous quarter. But if you hump it, if you go out there and get it, I think you can end up 2024, maybe not on the same plateau and level as 23 saw for many of us, but I think a very respectable outcome can be achieved. It's just my opinion.
Oh, I totally agree. It's out there. You don't see a decline in trade shows right now. So exhibitors are there, they're spending money, and it's there for the taking. You just have to be aggressive,
I just think the only thing that kind of bothers me at this juncture, nobody likes to talk about it, is the international situation with war that's going on in two areas right now. I mean, you've got Gaza Strip, you've got Ukraine, and then, Japan and China are not on the best terms right now. And there's movement that's going on. And if that one happens, that's going to change a lot of things. And now, history is beginning to repeat itself. And that does bother me a little bit. Doesn't bother me a little bit. It bothers me a lot, because I don't think our network of being able to solve these problems is quite intact at the moment. And that's not a political statement. It's a reality statement. We'll see where it goes. Sometimes diplomacy does work and sometimes it doesn't. And I'm just interested in seeing what everybody's going to do when everybody over there on that side of the world says enough's enough, and all of a sudden the bombs really start hitting. So that does concern me. I think it should concern everybody else.
Sure. Yep.
So it's an interesting time in the world right now, and we appreciate you taking time on a Friday to listen to us here at Trade Shows Unhinged.